20-second countdown.
Worst case scenario, though, is if we look at the options.
How do we understand? Okay, we are back in.
Numbers.
Man, are we making like any of these changes we made, just kind of little changes? When we do a vote on it, will it be with changes or these still minor? And then you can keep track of all the changes. And then we can ask you, remind us what the changes are. Hey, we are back. We are on to number 19, the street fund. Is that Dave? Dave's to go.
Perfect, thank you all. So this is a fund that's always been an interesting one to present. 8 years ago when I presented this, it was a very different picture than where we are today. It was very bleak. Since then, we've worked very hard to strengthen this street fund, and I think we're getting there where I'm very happy. So the street fund receives its money from multiple sources. We receive state gas tax, which for this year is actually down 8,821 to a total of 646,134. I think everybody follows gas tax, realizes that with EVs, that's actually in decline, and it is a statewide problem and probably a nationwide problem. I assume at some point in the future that'll be corrected. I've heard rumors of a tire tax and different things that the state is approaching to try to do that. So I'm hoping that these numbers at some point will creep back up for us. Our local fuel tax, we've been budgeting in 250,000 a year. It's been pretty consistent at that. So we just carry that number over. We also receive federal surface transportation dollars that equates to about $102,000 a year. That has to be spent on capital street improvement projects. We have 60,000 budgeted for the year estimated for interest, and a carry cash carryover of 2,614,488, giving a total resources of $3,672,622. Expenditures for the year, personal services are at $299,413, which is up $13,537 from the previous year. As I mentioned earlier, we went through and analyzed all of the public works staff and corrected them to what we believe is an accurate workload, which obviously is fairly consistent. We don't see much change there with only $13,000 increase. Materials and services for the year are $228,947, which is up $11,482. We, over the years, once again, have kind of dialed in on what our maintenance costs are and what our crews can do for painting, crack sealing, patch bleeding, and potholes, etc. The big one for the year is the capital outlay. It's at $1,435,000. That's the part that I'm most excited to report. Is that we are finally in a position to, as Teresa mentioned, start the design of the sidewalks around the grade schools. So we will begin designing this winter from Vine Street to Grant Watts and then north along Third Place. I'm not sure how far we're gonna go. We may only go to Rose Street. We may go all the way uptown. That part is still to be determined. And then hopefully, if the design gets done quick enough, we'll get this out to bid and start construction on this work within this fiscal year. It's going to be contingent on how fast the design work can get done. We can get it out to bid.
At the mid school.
No.
Here on the highway.
Grade school. We're going to go over to Grant Watts grade school.
But what about the sidewalks around the mid school? You know, the trash goes back.
Yeah, that's not on the city's radar. We went over there last year and did the improvements at First and Maple. And there's enough sidewalk to push you far enough down on Maple Street that it's relatively safe. And then there's sidewalks all the way down on Neon Watts. So there is access for the length of that. And there's a wide enough shoulder for the moment that 4th Street's just not worth the investment for us. There's not enough children traveling on 4th Street versus the Grant Watts area that's unprotected. We have to prioritize the resources that we have, and there's a far greater need at the Grant Watts grade school level than there is Bedminster.
Well, with 3 schools, high school, grade school, Peterson and Grant Watts.
Yeah.
Versus 1 school, and it may not be a school.
And that's what I was just gonna say, and with the school district, I don't know what they're even gonna do with that property. If they were to ever redevelop, they would be triggered to put the sidewalks all the way around that regardless. So it would be senseless to put city dollars into that infrastructure when there'd be a different mechanism to do that.
Do we have an estimated price per foot of a sidewalk, like a bus? Can you just try to, they tell you?
$100, your thing. It depends on the size of the project.
Yeah.
The bigger the project, that lower that price is. So if we're doing a big one, and that's why it makes sense to do third and vine all at once, where at one point we talked about piecemealing and just with one or the other, but if we can combine them, I think we're finding a financial position to do that. We'll get a better return on our dollar.
Do you budget low on interest because you're gonna be spending some money? I mean, normally we've got so much interest, wouldn't it be the same if now you're gonna have some out, you're gonna spend some?
The interest income?
Yeah,
Well, we're kind of monitoring the market and we're seeing a downward trend in their interest that the city is receiving across the board. So we back that off because we'd rather be conservative than too optimistic on interest and not have it there.
We don't really want to consider interest a source of revenue. You know, it's,
and they're gonna be spending it too.
And it's not listed in here for future, hopefully. In the state legislature, the ordinance is reporting, we do have a bill in there that might increase, the share revenue to transportation stuff by 70%. So there's some additional, maybe if it's do, they're pretty positive about it, wait to see. I don't know if that would affect this year or next year, still wait to see what the final ones are for that, but there's some additional stuff they're trying to figure out to help with some of this gas tax reduction stuff.
The other thing that we've got our sights set on is another overlay project. As you know, a couple of years ago, we did several streets up in the northwest portion of town. We're now in a financial position that we can start looking at another round of that. The thing that we need to align is making sure the infrastructure underneath the roadway is good to go for several years, because we don't want to invest in a road and just go back to cut that. So
Do you typically just go over the top of what's there? You fix a little bit, then go over it?
it depends on the profile of the pavement. If you can, yes. Sometimes what happens is if it's a road that has existing curves, you would come in and mill those edges down so that that pavement grade matches with the new overlay on it. So you would increase the crown, if you will, but you keep the edges at the same grade they currently are. So there's some profiling to that.
Would you say that's less expensive than sidewalks, that type of, blacktop asphalt versus sidewalks? I mean, you get
Blacktop is always cheaper than concrete. But
they're doing a lot more.
it's not applicable because anywhere that has existing sidewalk infrastructure, by law, when we do an overlay, we have to make all of those compliance or all those wheelchair ramps, et cetera, ADA compliant to the current standard. So that drives the cost of these projects up for us. And it's what we can do with some of that. So there's a lot that goes into the overlay projects of the plan. Once again, you gotta make sure the infrastructure underneath is good to go. You've got to make sure that all of the sidewalk infrastructure around it is compliant. You know, like High School Way isn't that underneath an overlay, but there's a sewer main that needs to be replaced for half the length of that road. That right now we're not in a financial position to move forward with all of the infrastructure going on with the wastewater treatment plant. So we're looking our way through this, but it's very logistical thing to try to plan for them.
Like on Dutch Canyon Estates number 4, do they have to pay for all the sidewalks along Dutch Canyon?
yes.
On their sides.
And so sometimes you would, oh, they're gonna be doing all this, we can,
And we have done that. We partnered in when the subdivision was built on Sixth and Elm. We worked with them to expand beyond the boundaries of what their requirements were, utilize their contractors and their design engineers to add and build infrastructure that benefited us at a lower price. So we always keep our eyes open for those opportunities with development to grow with the project.
Question not related to you, Dave, but more to Lori, just at the top of my head. Buxton project, are they gonna take the sidewalk all the way up to connect to that fourplex that was just built off JP West?
Yeah, there's a portion of it that we would need to pick up, like, I think it's one lot maybe, or 2 lots, but yeah, yes, that's the goal.
Okay, thank you.
Any questions on streets?
Thanks, gas, the local fuel tax, how much longer will that exist?
4 more years?
If we have to put it back on the ballot?
Yeah, oh, we'll be great.
Oh, it's on our radar.
Forewarning,
And
forewarning.
ODOT, if you look at the state, ODOT, it's a huge thing, the finances of their budget and how over there, and the EVs and how are they gonna collect on EVs? And how do we collect on EVs, when we're not paying for our gas tax? So it's a big issue within the state, it's all transportation edge. So we don't have the bypass over the highway on this year's, but not yet.
I look for it, just getting sense of the number.
I guess they're not streets. Okay, oh, it'd probably be the next footpath and bicycle.
So the footpath and bicycle fund, the capital carryover for the year is 256,218. Interest income is budgeted at 5,000, which is what we budgeted last year. Transfers will be none for the year. Intergovernmental revenue, which is 1% of the state gas taxes, the funding mechanism for this, estimated is $6,500, giving a total resource for the year at 11,500 with a combined total of 267,718. Expenditures for the year, we budget $3,000 for pathways, although over the years, we've never utilized that. Usually there are paths within the parks or whatever, so we'll use those funds. Capital outlay projects are budgeted at 40,000, which is for the sidewalk improvement and repair projects.
Did that change from 1,000?
It did. We loved it from 1,000 to 2,000. That'll be coming out on the website soon. We're just finalizing language right now with the staff. So yes, we're trying to make it more enticing for the community. All of the other parameters will be the same, other than the payout will be larger, just because the cost of concrete and everything are up. And so it makes it harder for people to utilize it. So we want to encourage that. If after another year or two, this program doesn't get much more traction, then I think we'll look holistically to restructure this and start doing the projects ourselves and just keeping this money and actually going out and making those repairs on our own behalf. There's several neighborhoods, heading over in Southwest Fort, probably on lots. The first 8 mile of that, the concrete was in an era that just is crumbling. And those are things that we need to get on our radar that the homeowners may never be able to afford to do. And so I think we can step in and think about helping to make those repairs. And then that, once again, that will allow us to do the pavement for them. Because we would have to make that ADA compliant before we could ever do the overlay. Which those of you from traveled from EMLOS to the senior center know how that pavement section is. It's not a great speed, so.
Is this the fund that could help with a bridge from Concomitant to Veterans?
We have looked at that as well. Yeah. Yeah, so we actually have some engineers estimates on that bridge. We did some research on that. It came in a bit higher, it's closer to $500,000. I was hoping it would be somewhere in the neighborhood of 200, but it was quite a bit more. So I think we're gonna need to think about a grant. At some point, but right now we're going after that one, otherwise that would probably next our stuff. Anyways, they did a contingency for the fund after those expenditures of 224,000, I would say the budget of 267,718. Or sorry, yeah.
For the sidewalk program, you're budgeting 40,000 a year, but we're not getting that right now. So it's kind of.
We didn't have any takers this past year. We had one that we thought was gonna do the program, but they decided that it wasn't a good fit for them, and they just thought it didn't.
Thank you. Probably you get stormwater drainage fund?
That's not what I had up this year.
I'm taking reins on this one. So like Dave said about the streets, the stormwater fund is developed nicely. We started this a while back and kind of left it alone, let it build. This fiscal year currently, we've actually deployed it as a full functioning fund. And this next upcoming year, you can see it reflected in the capital outlays and going a little bit further and getting some projects going in design and moving forward with stormwater projects. So the beginning carryover for stormwater is $2,266,843 with $35,000 in interest and $968,045 in stormwater fees, which puts us at just about $3.2 million for total resources. And as you go through the personnel services, as Dave mentioned, we've dialed the staffing to but it's actually being done in storms, so that's actually gone down a little bit. Materials and services has gone up again because of transfers, fluctuation there. And capital outlay, $1,385,000. That outline kind of includes, again, project designs for projects that are going to be coming. For dry wells, we have dry wells that we need to start installing and retrofitting. Stormwater improvement projects, partnering with Scapa State Water Council on projects along the creek line. And then again, another portion of the contract coming from stormwater.
And, so we'll see. I mean, you've got 1.3 million spent this year, or you're starting to in the next budget cycle. And like I said, are those mostly retrofits? Will we see these new facilities somewhere? Are we gonna be able to market and let people know, hey, look, we've done this dry well, or? Are they,
Go ahead. Yeah, so where we're gonna target first is over on the east side of town. Any of you who travel through here realize that during a heavy event, you see a lot of clogging on the roads. What we're gonna do is go through and identify 10 to 20 locations where we'll install a new dry well. And then we'll determine based on staff levels and what our workload is, whether our public works crews will run the pipe work from the dry wells and set basins, or we'll use a contractor for that. But ultimately, those are the neighborhoods that we're gonna target first. For anybody who travels just across the road over here, Second Street, floods South Pierce, Third Street does, just out in Second Street here. I mean, all of these neighborhoods are where we're gonna go with this type of infrastructure. The other thing that we work with, as Doug mentioned, with the Scapa State watershed, is that along the creek, those of you who have been at Veterans Park or on the Graphon parcel have seen the layback projects that the watershed's been doing. We have two designs already at 10% level for doing the same thing on the Concommo property on the east side of the creek and at Creekview Park. And so we're gonna move forward with completing the design. Those projects are intended to be done with our public works crews as well, just to save money. And then the watershed will come in on our deals after we've done the dirt work and they'll do the plan. So those will be partnership projects, but there will be some design costs and some capital expenditures we'll have to do.
those help the creek? It kind of gives it a place to flood temporarily until it can be dry a little.
Yeah, it adds storage capacity, obviously, but it stabilizes it. We have a sewer line on the east side of the creek that several years ago eroded from unmanaged creek banks where you don't have the infrastructure there to protect the banks. So when they exposed that sewer line, the city had to put two different spots, had to do some emergency repairs along that to stabilize the bank. This will factor in and have that for us as part of the project.
Yeah, 98 lived on the creek. They came through and got rid of all the vegetation, and the creek comes through and hits the embank. A big tree fell down and pretty soon changes the creek direction, and you lose 4 or 5 feet of your property.
For anybody who's been in creek, I mean, that's all that's on the bank, so basically it's blackberries. So when we do these projects, we put the proper vegetation to build a riparian zone in the way that it's supposed to be with the plants and root structure that actually stabilizes those banks. So it's multi-factor benefits of these projects. So.
Do you work with like the private homeowners as well to offer them to participate in the project in any way?
We will look to do that. However, the Scapa State watershed is actually the better people to be doing that. That is what they write themselves on doing that work like that. So we help set the standards by going up first, and then they'll continue to move on. They've got actual designs all the way, ultimately from the river all the way up South Scapa Creek. It's just in all the bases to do that. So.
Most of them are out of park too, right? They're on our property basically.
Those are the ideal locations to start, but they are moving their way up South Scapa Creek with local property owners working on enhancement projects and projects as well. Water temperature has been another thing that they're working really hard on. Cooler water temperatures for fish habitat, and keeping the E. coli levels and things down. So it's been a big study for all of those agencies. So
I swear every time I drive by Smith Road Pump, the creek is always the same level and it doesn't look like it's moving. But I'm sure it's moving pretty good.
February a few years ago, that was not.
Thank you, and it probably carries over to number 22, stormwater drainage SDC fund.
Again.
Okay.
All right, stormwater SCC's working capital carryover, $420,450. With interest of $12,000 and, the development charges of $86,806. Putting $519,306 total resources. Of these resources for expenditures, $200,000 put aside for capital outlay for, improvements and or council projects. Transfers of $4,343, contingency of $314,900.
You will notice that does not match if you're looking at the budget notes. There is an inaccurate statement in the budget notes. There will be a corrected version of that. So look, if you look at the numbers in the table below the budget notes, those are correct, but the numbers in are wrong.
So what difference is this in the stormwater? This is funds that come from new development.
Correct.
We get fees and it has to be used for stormwater capacity improvement. Anywhere within the city, it doesn't have to be by the development and be built. And so some of the things you're gonna do, use some money from here and some money from the last fund.
Yeah, if it's capacity adding, we're eligible.
That's the criteria, yeah.
As new developments come online, you're gonna do street sweeping for those as well.
But like the Dutch Canyon, they had to do their whole own stormwater tie into the drainage there for Dutch Canyon State, correct?
That's correct. So the developer will pay for the infrastructure necessary for that subdivision. But when the homes are built, they'll pay the SDCs. That revenue goes into these funds, and then that helps us fund additional capacity. So then anywhere we can focus.
Okay. Number 23, street SDC fund.
All right, so here's the fees. As I mentioned, a second ago, the same thing. When homes are built, SDCs are paid into this fund for street capacity projects. So working capital carryover for this fund for the year is $937,531. System development charges are estimated at $304,947. Interest is projected at $35,000, giving total resources of $1.277,478. Let's see, capital outlay for the year is budgeted at 600. Street SDCs, I'm gonna break off a little bit, are 50% eligible for these sidewalk projects. So we will be using some of this money to help with the school sidewalk projects. That is what the capital outlay identified as for. Transfers will be projected at $15,247, ultimately 5% of the SDCs gets to be kicked back to the general fund to help for administrative costs. So that's set aside. Leaving contingency of $662,231, balance the budget at $1,277,478.
Those SDC fees you're expecting are based on the new development that you figure would kind of permit and pay. Like last year, we had 192, well, some of them delayed, never got around to it, so some of them are now pushed into this year. And if we don't get them all, the outlay would probably not happen either, I mean. Well,
We probably won't be restrained from doing the projects because of this. But in a nutshell, these numbers are in alignment with the 37 homes that Lori mentioned in the commercial properties, so on and so forth. We work across the board. The Community Development Office does an estimate for the year, and then we all base our numbers so that they're somewhat consistent based on those projections. And so these numbers would be aligned with all of those public works SDC plans. They would all be based on that same basis.
they don't have to be used for anything near that development either, though, they're basically used anywhere.
They're typically designed with things that you'll find on the master plans. So if you look in the master plans, you'll see those projects that are capacity having, those are typically what we're planning. But we also reevaluate with what's real world on certain circumstances. One of those projects may get changed in priority because we'll know something is changing within development But it makes more sense to build that infrastructure now rather than later. If somebody's bought a property and they come forward and say, hey, we want to start developing, that's what I need to think about. That kind of fluid thing.
Like if we build Gravelorn Park, it needs a lot of sidewalks. That's gonna be part of the park project, most likely. The grant money, the money we lay, it won't come from these other funds.
No, but actually, good for that scenario, could come from here because it's capacity adding to that neighborhood. But we have that on our radar.
Okay, that was street fund. Number 24, park SDC fund.
Parks SDC, that is it. Working capital carryover, $173,160. With, revenues from interest, $5,000, and the SDC charges $98,608. Total resource of $276,778. So this also, as we've talked about the grants and parks and whatnot, this is, has $200,000 capital outlay set aside for the capital outlay, past improvements, on some of the gravel grants, if grant does go through, whatnot. $4,903 transfers, $71,837 in.
Roughly what is it, $2,500 a house for the SDC fee for a park, or roughly, or?
It's like, yeah, it's like 2531, but you'll see a 1.6% increase this coming year.
And then each one has wastewater, stormwater, I mean, they're all SDC.
Correct, 2531, correct, I think.
I will quote the parks. I thought it was slightly less than that, but it could be. I thought it was closer to 2, but it's in the.
See some of the ideas that you plan on spending some money that you're gonna do.
Okay, well, ultimately, we would potentially be somewhat competing this when we build Gatlin. We'll capture this money down with that as well. This fund was fairly strong up until we built a concrete. We did for that part of construction, and we've been slowly moving that back up.
Yeah, again, like you saw, we haven't had many houses for a couple years there.
Yeah, it's been a little, but it's.
Everybody's favorite, number 25, pool fund. Hang on.
Okay. So it's good. Well, I couldn't figure out how to get rid of it.
Okay.
Couple of interesting things about the pool project. I basically have figured we're going to transfer the money that's in the pool fund to the, another restricted into the parks reserve fund. Really, this money that is in the pool fund right now really belongs to parks.
Yeah.
You know, because it's kind of left over from revenue.
Yeah.
From purchase. So that's gonna be, so I budgeted to transfer that to the general fund. There's also another chunk of money, there's $48,000 that we cannot spend with the, which has with full fund, donation, so they're restricted. So we're gonna take those and set up a restricted fund balance account in the general fund. But restricted, we can't use it for anything but, because that's what the documentation, for that is. So that will go, but that's not showing the full fund right now. It never has. It's been sitting on. So
We're never gonna be able to touch it, no matter what.
it's
Pretty unless we build a.
It says these funds here too, if a pool is built, Carol, if the pool is built, these funds will be taken back out or dedicated as well some other time.
never went.
We have to find them,
And
but we would spend them on some.
Water base,
There are rules.
like exactly like a splash pad. Could that one?
I don't believe that, no, I read back and I don't believe that we can use.
Gotcha, okay.
We
It doesn't say how big.
For me and half.
Yeah, concrete farm. Yeah,
Concrete pond.
and people can take their like radio control boats out.
I like that.
Yeah, it's not.
Freezing, the way down there towards Selwood. When you get into the corner down there where those.
Yeah.
Yes.
Big bar, people use those for all kinds of activities. That's correct.
If you do something, you might be able to freeze it in the winter.
Not
There you go.
priorities, but so, but
We'll figure it out sometime.
yeah, we get creative.
I'll bring it work really hard. It was cold on that.
And
So,
Number 26, unemployment insurance fund.
yep, that's also mine. This is another one of those funds that the city is self-insured for unemployment. We don't pay unemployment taxes. If anybody that has ever worked for us ends up on unemployment, we have not laid anybody off. We are planning to lay anybody off. But if anybody ends up on unemployment, because we had to pay like $9,000 out a couple of years ago. But it wasn't something that they lent us, but then they got laid off for another job. So it still comes back on us, last 2 years. So we're just basically maintaining the reserves that are in there. In the past, all the departments have lines to transfer money out of their payroll budget to the unemployment fund. We have not been doing that since we haven't needed it. So we're gonna continue to not need it, and that's the plan. And so if it ever got low, currently, there's still, $98,326 in there. We always budget 50,000, potentially have to pay out. And so we have contingency of $48,000, even if it's spent all that. I don't anticipate that's gonna happen. That's happened in all these years. So it's just a matter of, as long as we don't have to put more money as a department since the unemployment fund, we're not going to. We're gonna just kind of let it ride, as long as it's maintained itself.
Thank you. In the good stuff. 27, utility water fund 40.
Budget committee, thanks. In the, water, utility water fund for the budget year 25-26. The water fund will begin with a cash carryover of $3,442,039. The fund expects to collect $2,723,126 in service charges. $3,250,000 in intergovernmental revenue, $2,950,000 in debt proceeds, and $120,000 in interest. The total fund resources are $12,485,165. Proposed expenditures in the water fund include $1,356,689 for personal services, $914,357 for materials and services, and $5,945,000 for capital outlay. The fund budgets $81,439 for debt service, $481,392 for transfers, and a projected contingency of $3,706,288. For this year's projects, focus will be to complete the construction of a new 3 million gallon reservoir with salt wells, a new generator at Miller Road treatment plant, water distribution pipeline replacement in the northwest portion of the city, water loss reduction, and SCADA upgrades. With that, there is one last minute ask that I would like to add to this budget. Last November, down at Miller Road treatment plant, we experienced a leakage in our roof, and that leak had found its way into a cabinet that houses our main PLC for the plant. So our that it knocked out our plant computer, that water tank. that had found its way into the cabinet. We had a roofer come out and one thing about flat roofs, which is what a roof has, it's very difficult to, locate leaks. Typically they put a layer of gravel on those, when they lay those roofs. And so sometimes finding the exact pinpoint leak can be very difficult. Anyways, so what we did, we repaired the leak. We did some work around the PLC cabinet to ensure that water would not find its way back into the cabinet. At that time, we had talked with some roofers. We were, after we had visited with the roofer, actually a few roofers, there was kind of consensus that they thought that we may have, it was definitely on its telling of its life cycle, that we might have a year or two, left in it. So what we had done was we tried to get some budgetary numbers, and we thought maybe we might wait till next year to do that project. Recently, in the last handful of days, we've developed more leaks in other parts of the plant. We think it's in our best interest budget for that. So we'd like to add that to this year's budget. The numbers that I've received were estimating around $200,000 for that replacement. It's a commercial roof, it's pretty specialized. And so we would like to see if we could make an amendment and add that to that.
Was it the same roof that was leaking before? It's part of that same problem, but somewhere else and it's
Yeah.
all over now.
Yeah, and I'm worried, we've got other, electrical panels in there and various other equipment. I'm worried about damaging. This last little, we've had rain since then. We thought we were okay with the leaks, but, over the weekend, just this last bit of rain, some water puddling, over next to one of the walls. So really kind of, it was alarming.
Did that go under building facilities maintenance?
If you're under,
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, capital outlay, the impact of the budget ultimately would be 200,000 of cap contingency would reduce. But if you look at that, the contingency is still more healthy, is healthier than our cash carryover, so it's still projected to even add to the budget, just we have contingency, and then anything we don't spend is gonna be healthier, so.
So when you vote tonight, the formal amendment would be that capital outlay would go to from 5,945,000 to 6,145,000. And then the contingency would go from 3,706,288 to 3,506,288.
And pretty good. I mean, that's 200 is pretty close. And, and you have to go out for bids and do all that, book that amount. And
Yeah. I think the 200 should, I don't expect that much. But, I'm not agree with it. So we'll definitely put that out to bid.
would it have its own line there, 300 and something eventually, like roof, or will it have?
You wouldn't see it here, it would be in the packing.
Okay.
But I think we can add it, we'll add it to our chart back there. Of the project. So it's really clear what we're doing.
Water factor SIP portion.
Yeah, the roof is, the final is over 2004, so 21 years. I don't think it was a high-end roof to begin with.
Well, it's gonna need to be done, you said within a year, do it now before the price will probably be lower this year and maybe next. And,
Yeah.
and any damage you get from water, we saw the water just the last 2 days.
Well, the reality is that the computer that he's referring to has a replacement cost of about that 200,000, so we really don't know that's
It's not like a little Surface Pro,
Right.
200,000. Okay.
Can they charge it for the interim? Or can they charge the road as an interim?
I think, we're seeing the leaks. I think we're okay. I don't think it's in the area where we're gonna damage, but tarping it would be there's tons of bends and all kinds of other things.
Just you're moving anything underneath it.
Exactly.
Damage from the
Definitely be vigilant about it. Trying to identify, just keep our eyes on it, make sure.
Pending approval of this budget, we're actually gonna try to move fast on this and within left by next fall, So they'll get full have to worry about going into the winter. It's by the upcoming year.
So this summer.
This-
both of them.
Yeah.
Do you have any money left in this year's budget?
I don't think enough for some of that. We don't know.
That's all you can.
We wouldn't be able to spend it before June 30th, then, yeah, so it's.
Exactly,
You could get the base stuff.
yeah.
Thank you. I'm sure you got the next one too. Water SDC Fund 50.
Water SDC fund, the budget, 2025-26 budget year, water SDC fund begins the year with a projected beginning cash amount of $95,976. Projected revenue is $364,280, coming from two sources, $4,000 from interest and $360,280 from water SDC. The fund, total fund resources are $460,256. Expenses within the fund include debt service in the amount of $281,551. This is to make principal and interest payments on loans GO 3003 maturing in 2028 and SO 3003 maturing in 2035. The fund anticipates the transfer of $19,806 to the general fund for SBC administration and a contingency of $258,899 for a total in expenditures of $460,256. The fund focus is to identify future water sources and design capacity approving distribution projects. Really, it's really mainly just for debt service. It's because we borrow.
Which kind of brought me back to, I forgot to ask last time, your intergovernmental 5 million, mostly ARPA dollars. And same with the 3.2 million budgeted this year. And then the loan is about a $3 million loan. 2.9 for the reservoir.
Yeah.
And then the rest will be a loan and this will be, I'll pay for that. Okay. Okay, moving on. Utility wastewater fund 41.
Eric, a council member, and budget committee members, thank you all for your time and commitment to the city schedules. The wastewater fund will begin with working capital carryover of $4,367,729 and anticipates revenue from interest, intergovernmental programs, and long-term debt proceeds to be $11,371,302. Total revenues from 25-26 fiscal year are $15,739,031. Fund expenditures from personnel, material service, capital outlay, debt service, and the transfers are expected to be $10,605,807. Contingency is anticipated to be $5,133,224, making total expenditures of $15,739,031. Most of the projects this year are tied to the phase one treatment plant upgrades. There's a few other things, utilities has gone up, there's an increase in electrical, natural gas, primarily for the dryer. There's a few projects in 300 that aren't tied to the upgrades, including aerobic digester, diffusers, and typical emergency pumps, city for pump replacements.
Was a lot of the phase one stuff, even in last year's budget. I mean, it was last year and part of it was spent throughout the year and now this is the continuation of that.
Yeah, well, last year's in the current year we're in.
So like intergovernmental revenue, 5.5 million was our budget last year. We only got 1.5 and we're only gonna get 1.5. if we lose on some ARPA dollars or something there that just some of it got moved to this year and
Yeah, anything that isn't being constructed between now and June 30th is all rolled over.
so the $13.5 million loan, half of it was about last year and the other half is about, we're gonna be getting into it this year. Not a new loan, it's part of the
Same, yeah, correct, same. Couple points of clarity, if any of you are looking at the table on page 108, you'll notice a few of the numbers didn't jive with what he was saying. And if the numbers on this table are inaccurate, the numbers on the budget notes are the correct. So for the clarity, working capital carryover is $4,367,729, not $5,708,671. Contingency is $5,133,224, not $6,474,166. And expenditure total is the $15,739,031. So you're finalizing the documents tonight for the action. And it is verified from Springbrook and Earl. I've got the worksheets, so I trust them.
We're on the 30 wastewater SPC fund 3055.
It'll be the same here. Some of the numbers on the table below. Wastewater fund is working capital carryover, $181,436. Anticipates receiving $24,000 in interest. $226,701 SDC fees for total resources. So $432,137. The expenditures from capital outlay transfers are anticipated to be $421,335, leaving a contingency of $10,000 to some good use of those SDC dollars for the property. We'll get these tables and update them with to match.
And if we vote, we need to vote with the admit changes, and then you'll correct them all, set it out. If we have any problem with this.
That's what the resources. Match. In the narrative, it's 722, 797. And the table is 432, 37.
Okay,
I'll have to make sure that I said, oh, that total one is accurate, I guess something either.
do we know what the wastewater SPC fee is for single home? About the same, or the water SPC fee? Are they about the same? I wonder if you can look.
Who's saying around 5,500?
Water is higher.
Yeah.
Yeah, water's maybe closer to 7.
Wastewater for a 3/4 inch is 5,739.
About 5. To you 1 inch. Okay.
You have any other trivia questions for the
Ben, are we taking advantage of all the potential STCs that we could be training for? For example, is there like a public safety STC that you could put on a house or?
Not enough. So these are capacity improving improvements for
Infrastructure.
utility funds. Now, that would be more like a fee, the public safety fee we can charge on our utility bills.
For the wastewater project, most of the qualifying percentage is about 28%. It's different ideas of the project. Can use estimates.
Yeah, right. We provide water, stormwater, and wastewater.
Okay, so point of clarity, I guess, on this one is that this one, the numbers that we're taking. Disregard the 720.
It should, yeah, just the 722, the total, you saw the rest of the numbers that, I don't know if they're correct, but it's just that one. Resources. 1,700.
Okay, so that's basically the budget in 31, 32.
31 is blank next year, with the debt. It used to be the debt service fund, and I'm gonna put the loan list to next year.
Yeah,
So I think
yeah,
that-
how many loans do we have and when they expire?
And so I think, I was thinking that I would add those in next year, so,
We have 32 is transferred.
yeah, and there's not much to it, we've seen all the transfers, and all sorts of stuff before that. So this just documents, where it's coming out, where it's going in.
Okay, so any questions, any more, go back, anything before we move on? Great job, appreciate all this, and going through it. For Raymond, educating me, appreciate it. It was, very well put together too, so you coming into this, you can really understand it. And as a budget committee, we are here to recommend, this budget to the council. Possibly, so if there are no more discussions or questions, I will entertain a motion to approve the budget as corrected or as amended.
Yeah.
Correct.
Jacob,
Make a motion that we adopt the city of Scappoose fiscal year 2025-2026 annual budget as amended through the proceedings.
motion by Councilor Jacob to approve Captain's 25-26 budget as amended. Any seconds? By all those in favor, any more discussion? You guys feel good about it? I mean, do we feel good this budget? I really appreciate how we didn't have to make a lot of cuts, cut people, we have to raise fees right at this moment. It's great. Seeing us use the ARPA dollar that was before our time, I think you did a really good job there, and it really has helped us not have to raise fees for some of those services. So I appreciate that.
Mr. Mayor, I will just say, yeah, thank you for all the hard work on the budget. I do want to have continued discussions about how we fill some of the gaps. I don't think it's prudent to have operating costs going from the general fund reserves as the long-term strategy. So look forward to those conversations in the future.
Appreciate any further discussion. Seeing none, all those in favor, state by saying aye. Actually, I gotta do a roll call vote. Don't need to.
No, I just put the names on, sorry.
Appreciate it. All those aye, all those opposed? Motion carried. Okay, awesome. Okay, we are done with Scappoose budget. Halfway there, guys. We got urban renewal budget.
Big fast.
No.
Oh, yeah.
We got stations. This one moving quicker.
This one's fast.
This was quicker. You know, okay with that?
34.
Make sure you look at page 3 of 28 under tab 35 and see when you expire, so we can make sure we add you, increase you. Sandy, Chris, we'll be coming to you shortly and asking if you'd like to continue on with our budget committee. Appreciate that. Okay, we have an urban renewal agency, and City Manager Ben, if you'd like to give us the update message for that.
Absolutely. Thank you, Mayor Backus. It is my pleasure to present to you the city of Scappoose proposed urban renewal budget for fiscal year 2026. The urban renewal budget includes $2.078 million towards the new $3 million Keys Reservoir project. This contribution to the reservoir includes a carryover of the $1.6 million. The original plan for fiscal year 25 and is the complete 21% allowed for this project. The original $1.6 million was not spent in fiscal year 2025 due to prioritization of funding. The city still had an American Rescue Plan Act for ARPA funds available for this project that needed to be used before its deadline. It was determined to pay out of ARPA funds first to close out the grant and then utilize the urban renewal funds second. Utilizing these funds reduces water rate increases for the community and supported by the urban renewal's goal to improve needed infrastructure for future development. In fiscal year 25, the total of $69,151 in grants were awarded to Shadley's Express Lane Espresso and the Lodge for complete improvements made through the program. For fiscal year 26, the city has budgeted $75,889 for this program to continue to incentivize and assist existing businesses to improve or expand their operation in the urban renewal district. Sincerely, Benjamin Bergener, City Manager.
Great. I'm learning all the time about this urban renewal district. It's great. If we have, you can issue up to 70 or $37 million. So we have a ways to go, but as the urban renewal area is developed, it could go pretty quick. So we go into you see page 8 of 32 and 9 of 32. Those are the areas within our urban renewal district. We amended add number 9, the Keys Road Reservoir, to get that in the last year.
Sorry, did you approve the minutes?
Yes, since I'm at this point of my next. Okay, if we look at, we need to look at last year's minutes. Approval of urban renewal agency minutes, May 13, 2024. If we have a motion to approve. Jacob?
I move that we approve the Urban Renewal Agency Budget Committee agenda from Monday, May 13, 2024 as written.
Jacobs to approve the urban renewal agency minutes as of May 13, 2024. Any seconds? Approved by Councilor Holmes. Any more discussion? All those in favor, state by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carried. Thank you. Okay, so paging through. Now we're up to page 12. Trying to look at it, see if there's any differences. Not much happens. It's a little bit slow moving. Not much happens. But the big one was we added the Keys Reservoir and allocated funds towards that. And nothing else at this time when you get it for us. So you wanted, Ben, are you going to go over page 14, I guess? Carl, the expenditures.
Yes, we basically have taken, a lot of it is pretty standard. Right now it's been using, the original spreadsheet, which kind of like the business executive today are. And so we think something from this was originally written, and this year was set that within a certain amount, it was 36,000. So there was 75,389. They're back up to revenue, so we do have some carryover that we didn't spend it last year in the 1,041,754. And we do have income on that money coming in. The property taxes I've estimated it at 582,000. And we've higher than that this year, but I would prefer we are conservative, so we may look a little higher, we should be okay. Total resources of $2,473,754. So expenditures, we have an administrative department that we're basically got personnel because part of it is we do a part of the salary, 5% going in there, and we do have some consultant fees, so they do help us write our reports, for the urban renewal district. So those are basically the administration department. And then we've got capital projects. I lumped everything in capital projects, but now we've got this is pretty much going for this is right, the regular at this point. And we have contingency of $233,438. So for a total expense of $2,473,754. This year, one thing we've been talking about kind of is scheduled is, schedule a meeting with the urban renewal agents and, to get together and say, what are our future plans? You know, because, and we'd like to have Andrea come in from the county, talk about a little bit more about the tax and, you know, how the funds are run, how, you know, compression and some of those things. You know, because I know most, nobody here was really involved in the original plan. So.
No, when they did it, they came up with a list of projects. And it would be interesting to see, you know, which one got paid by our other funds or on your radar anymore, or what is your next few projects you want to look at? Because Water Keys wasn't on there at the time, and so it would be good to have that on.
Yeah, we do have to, we'll kind of come up with projects. I remember Dave, the first year I did the budget, he looked at it and he goes, all these things have already been done. I'm going, well, how would I know that? Right. So.
And they're mainly, you know, water, I mean, that's a big one, water, streets, roads.
Interim city manager Langman was actually very instrumental in this. He brought me to the table with a lot of urban renewal experience when he was here and helped reshape and get us moving. Just as a reminder that after the water reservoir project is funded through urban renewal, we've already identified that the wastewater treatment plant has an allocation coming in next. So these funds will be committed for some time in the future now. And so that 21% is paid back to that project. So that's going to be very, very beneficial to the utilities that issues and other things. So.
Great. Anything else? Okay.
We probably should, at least in our discussions of how much do we want to allocate for grants in the future.
Okay, so if we don't spend all the grant, it adds on to the next year, carry it over.
Yes.
Yeah, I like to review that every so often. Are we getting what we wanted out of that program and we're hoping, or? Okay. We actually have a meeting coming up, I think, sounds.
Yep.
It won't work out.
Okay, if there's, that was the last one. If, we reviewed it and I would entertain a motion to accept the budget as presented or amended.
Renewable budget for 526, so we're gonna.
Special agent Holmes makes a motion to accept the urban renewal budget as presented for 2026. Any second?
I'll say.
Any more discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor state by saying aye.
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 Opposed? Okay, motion carries. Thank you very much. I think that concludes budget urban renewal. Any final comment? Appreciate it. That was good. I hear all these other cities and it's really feel that you guys have done a really good job.
Yeah, my
Fiscally responsible.
And my final comments, just appreciation for the department heads for all that they put into this. We did a lot of, we changed our process internally a little bit, and put us together, changed to an electronic version compared, well, a different electronic version with our system. And so the staff wants us to do that in addition to going through this budget process, which is the additional task this year, but it should make it easier hopefully in the future. Pay dividends in the end. So I appreciate all they've done, not just for that, but for everything else they do. We've got a great staff, we've got a great community. It's been a pleasure to work with all of them.
I appreciate you going after these grants and hopefully we'll see some of them come to fruition and get some things done. Appreciate it. Thank you guys. Meeting adjourned.